Hello and welcome to this week's live broadcast. My name is Lucy Parsons and I am the founder of Life More Extraordinary Academic Coaching. I think you got all that. I'm going to say it again because something strange happened on my screen just there. So hello and welcome to this week's live broadcast. My name is Lucy Parsons and I am the founder of Life More Extraordinary Academic Coaching. And today we're going to be talking about what grades don't test and how to assess yourself or your child instead. So if you're watching live or later, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Do you want your child to A, get the top grades, or B, get the best grades for them? So A, get the top grades, or B, get the best grades for them. Now that might sound like a slightly confusing question because you might be like, well, aren't the top grades the best grades for my child? And the answer to that is not necessarily, because it very much depends on your child, their abilities, their interests, all that kind of thing, as to whether actually getting all grade 9s or all A stars is actually the best thing for them. And I've found over the years that the parents that come to me and want to work with us saying, I just want my child to get all grade 9s, that's not a very happy situation for the family to be in, and it's not a great situation for us to be involved with either. It's the parents who want their children to reach their own individual academic potential that see the greatest success in terms of working with us and in terms of life and health balance for their children. So in this live, we're going to talk about what reaching your academic potential really means, the 4 grades you can award yourself that are more helpful than actual grades in promoting a growth mindset and a healthy attitude towards work. And finally, what's actually wrong with grades themselves as a measure of academic success. So if you're watching live, please do say hello in the chat and please do take part by contributing in the comments. So firstly, we're going to talk about what reaching your academic potential means in reality. So it's my belief, and this phrase, academic potential, is something that's come up over and over again over the years with the people in my world. So the parents who follow what I have to say and choose to work with us. And that kind of confounded me because when I first started this work, I did think that parents would be wanting all A stars or all grade 9s or whatever. But actually, this different attitude came through, and it's a much more healthy and positive attitude towards learning. So reaching your academic potential is more than about the highest possible grades for you as an individual. It's actually about an attitude towards learning and the behaviours that you exhibit as a result of that attitude. So specifically, what are we talking about? Well, we're talking about things like being ready to learn. Now, when I was a teacher and I used to write reports, the first sentence I used to write in the report was about how ready each individual student was to learn. And this meant both in a practical sense, but in a kind of in terms of their attitude as well. So did they come to the lesson with all the right kit, their pen, pencil, ruler, the right exercise book, the right textbook, but also did they come with the intention of learning, or did they come with the intention of disrupting everybody else's learning as well as their own? So the second behaviour that really demonstrates that somebody's moving towards reaching their academic potential is that students do their work to the best of their ability. So not every child has the same level of ability. There's huge amounts that we can do to help students move up through the grades, but not every child is a grade 9 student, and that is that's fine. There's different people with different talents and abilities for different walks of life. But if every student comes to each lesson intending to do their best work according to their ability, then they personally are going to reach their academic potential. The next thing is whether the child asks questions and looks for further information. So if children or students are asking questions, they're truly engaging with the information that's in front of them. They're developing a greater sense of intrinsic motivation. So that's motivation that comes from within. They're learning because they want to know the answers, not learning because they've been told to or because they're going to get a grade at the end of it. And then if they're looking for further information outside the classroom, or they're bringing it up at the dinner table, they're talking about what they've learned at school and that kind of thing, that really shows a level of engagement in their learning. The next thing is whether students look at the feedback that their teachers give them and do their best to implement that feedback. Now, I remember when I was teaching, I used to spend hours marking students' work and giving really detailed feedback, and you often got the sense that they didn't even really read it or didn't really put it into action. But the students who are going to reach their potential are the ones who are looking at it, trying to understand it, trying to implement it, and if they don't understand the feedback, they're asking for more help with it. The next thing, if a child is going to reach their academic potential, they are actually taking responsibility for their own learning and outcomes. And it's my experience that a lot of students, particularly in year 10 and the early part of year 11 and lower down secondary school, are not doing this. And it's really only when you do step up and start taking responsibility that your performance and your outcomes really improve. And the last thing about students who reach their academic potential are those that have a healthy balance. So they're getting enough sleep, they're eating the right kinds of food, they're having time with their friends, they're doing sports or physical activities, they maybe have creative things that they do as well. So they have this healthy balance in their life that gives them a rounded life, not just study, which isn't all that healthy for a rounded young person. So to summarise all of that, a student who is going to reach their academic potential is open-minded, ready to learn in all ways, and has a growth mindset. So if you're watching this live, I'd love to know, is your child doing these things? And to what extent? Give me a yes in the chat, in the comments, if your child is doing some or most of the things that I've just described, or give me a no if they're not. Okay, while you're having a think about that, we're going to move on and we're going to talk about what you can do instead of grades. So I saw a teacher on Twitter the other day, he's called Peter Williams, talking about how the fact his school had scrapped target grades for their students for most of the year, and instead they were using something they called performance indicators. And these performance indicators are really a description of the behaviours that the students at their school are exhibiting. And the 4 performance indicators are, going from the bottom upwards, resistant, so students who are resistant to learning. The next one up is passive, so students are learning but they're very passive about it, so they're not asking questions, they're not taking responsibility and all that kind of thing. The next one up is being an active learner, so that's when they do start asking questions, they start taking on a bit more responsibility, they start thinking more deeply, and they volunteer to answer questions and all that kind of thing. And the top level is ambitious, okay? And these are students who are just all over it. They're really creative, they're going the extra mile in practically everything they're doing. They're asking lots of questions. They're actively seeking out further information about the things that they're learning. So I'd love to know in the comments which of those 4 things you think your child is. So do you think they are resistant to learning? Do you think they're a passive learner, an active learner, or an ambitious learner? Let me know in the comments. So the idea here really is, if we're looking at behaviours, and this is one of our mantras in the Extraordinaries Club, which is the main way that I work with families in the exam years, is that the right behaviours lead to results. So there's not an awful lot of point in fixating on results or saying you want to get such and such a grade if you're not actually engaging in the behaviours that will lead to those grades. So it's all about developing the right behaviours. And if students are really clear about which of these levels they're working at and what that actually means and what they need to do next to move up to the next level, then that's going to really help them to change their behaviours so that they actually get better results. So I'm just going to check whether anybody's told me. Somebody's saying active. That's fantastic. So I'd say active is much more typical than ambitious. It's really the very, very, very top students that are going to be ambitious. And I would say basically ambitious is what they're looking for in people like Oxbridge students or people who want to be a doctor, that kind of level of student. And, when we work on our Oxbridge programme with young people, that's really what we're supporting them to become, is in that ambitious level. And it's been really lovely to hear some really good feedback from students this week that we've helped with their Oxbridge applications who've successfully got in. Okay, so we've talked about the 4 performance indicators: ambitious, active, passive, and resistant. But what's wrong with traditional grades as a measure of academic success? Well, grades don't directly measure attitude, they measure attainment. And it is entirely possible for a very bright student to be getting high grades but still only be a passive or active learner. And actually, if they engaged more in their learning by asking those questions, doing that extra research, taking more responsibility for what they're doing, they could get higher grades. But more importantly, they could be having a more enriching experience of their education. And so many young people are literally going through the motions in their education just because it's what society says they have to do, which is really sad, because education should just be a really inspiring and fascinating experience. It's one of the most enriching things that you do in your life. But then there are other students who maybe aren't getting the top grades but are doing these things. They're watching the news, they're reading magazines, they're getting books out of the library, that kind of thing, to enhance their knowledge just because they're interested. And those are the students that I would say that are actually reaching their academic potential, really realising what it is that they're capable of in the academic arena. And that is what we really, really want to see. So I'd love to know in the comments, do you agree with me? Do you think it's more important for students to reach their academic potential and really be exhibiting those behaviours of full engagement in learning? Or do you think it's more important just for them to get the grades? So in the comments, just say grades or say potential, depending on which you think is more important. So I hope you found this live broadcast insightful and interesting. Yesterday evening in the Extraordinaries Club, we actually had a parents coaching call, and we went through the full descriptors of each of the 4 performance indicators: ambitious, active, passive, and resistant. And parents created an action plan of the things that they were going to add into their lives or tweak to better support their children to really reach their academic potential. And if you're interested in that, we've got a download which really has the full descriptors of each of the performance indicators. Then we've got what you can do to support your child, and then the resources within the Extraordinaries Club that you can use to help you support your child with those things. But in the meantime, if you're not quite ready to join the Extraordinaries Club, you can download a free download that I've got for you, which is called 7 Top Tips for Parents to Help Your Child Reach Their Full Academic Potential. And I've put the link for that either above or below this video, depending on where you are watching it. So I really hope you found that helpful and given you something to think about today. Oh, that's great to see. Gillian and somebody else says they think it's more important for students to reach their potential than it is for them to get specifically high grades. I'm glad you agree with me and you're in the right place listening to me and interacting with me if that is your thinking. Okay, thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this interesting. Have a wonderful day and goodbye.